Hi, beautiful people. Let's talk about the amazing Teacher Self-Care Conference that I went to this past weekend in Houston. Everybody needs to go. Everybody. Every single person needs to be in attendance to at least one Teacher Self-Care Conference. Just like everybody needs to see an entire session of Ignites. Like every educator needs to experience this. Here's why. It felt so amazing to be in a space where everybody was intentionally there to get their buckets filled. That was why everybody was there. They were there to either help fill someone's buckets, thinking about presenters, the conference organizers, or they were there to just get their buckets filled, to feel whole, to feel like someone was contributing to their well-being. That is an amazing feeling to be in a space like that, where we don't intentionally get those spaces in other places in education, unfortunately, right? So the idea of creating these safe spaces, I'm thinking about how we get this in more places. How do we make the Teacher Self-Care Conference be on a larger scale that we could offer to more people? It was very intimate, it was very small, and which would made it really amazing. But at the same time, I think about how limiting that is for some people. Once that 150 tickets is done, that's done. Which is great because we get to be like a real tight family. But then I'm thinking about all the other people who miss out on that opportunity. How can we get more safe spaces for self-care across every city in America? In towns that house populations that and populations and disparities that are hard to deal with, right? That come with a lot of extra, that put a lot of weight on our shoulders. How do we roll this out on a grander scale? Because the way I felt being there a part of other people's sessions and then presenting mine in a space that people knew what they were getting into. Like, not to say that they don't know what they're getting into when I go to other conferences to present, but it was like, I know that this is about to be about me and my feelings and what I need and my self-care and my well-being. That's what they knew was about to happen. I'm thinking about not just how I was able to get my buckets filled and fill others, but how I do that in my regular life. Tunja Morton did a session, and within her session, she said, how does fill out, who are our bucket fillers, in our lives. And I started to think about a conversation I had with a friend, and she had told me, at some point, like I had to back up because, like, you got needy. Like, you got real needy. And you was going through a lot. Every conversation was about you and your struggles and how hard life was. And I was like, girl, I know, I'm so sorry. Like, I understand. Like, I was struggling. But then I did the flip and I said, who am I a bucket filler for? Who do I intentionally go out of my way to be that person to fill their bucket in some way, shape, or form, to help them out? Like, how am I intentionally doing that with the people in my life? Because again, we spend all day filling students' buckets. How am I filling other people in my life, my friends, my colleagues, my family members? How am I helping fill their buckets on a day-to-day basis? And I'm not just doing it, I'm definitely doing it for them, but I think about how I'm doing that for me. And how they say that going out and volunteering is one way of making yourself find purpose in the world. Filling other people's buckets, it just seems like another way to do that. And I'm really considering how I can continue that storyline and intentionally go out and do that for other people. I'm also thinking about how it feels to be at a conference that's about me. when you go to math conferences or computer science or science, English, whatever your cup of tea is, when you go to different conferences and it's about the content, I feel like there's a pressure to constantly take in all of this knowledge and everything and, come back to the school with something. But at the self-care conference, it just felt like it was about me. It felt like there was less pressure. I felt more relaxed. I felt at ease. I felt at peace to be in a space to know that this was just about me getting to a state of almost like neutrality, of being neutral, getting to a space that just feels good. It was just about me. I took some notes here and there, but ultimately I wanted to just leave feeling good, to feel better. And at regular conferences, I only have experience with math conferences or when I stop regular content related conferences. And they're doing more. So for instance, NCTM now has these wellness workshops, which I'm doing some of in Chicago in April. But these intentional spaces that allow people to say, ooh, I need my bucket filled. Where do I go to do that right now? Like right now. Without having to forego my conference experience. And sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you have to say, let me sit myself to the side because everything that's going on right now is overwhelming and I need to take a step back. But at the same time, is there a space at conferences, a room where people can go and vent, where people know that this room or this space or this area is going to be about us creating community around something that has to do with our self-care? It's a thought. Ultimately, everybody needs to go to the Teacher Self-Care Conference. It felt so good to be somewhere where people were like, they knew it was about to be about your feels and about getting what you need and about prioritizing yourself and being a little selfish and doing it for you. That felt good. And I want to know how we can make this be a thing in more spaces. I need more teacher self-care conferences, not just the 4 times that they come up, because they still have one coming up in St. Louis in April, and then in June is Atlanta. Great. But everybody can't get to Atlanta. Everybody can't get to St. Louis. The tickets are limited. How do we create something like that in LA, in Chicago, in Houston? Well, I mean, clearly we're just in Houston, but in Texas, in Dallas, like more regular. Like that's an ongoing thing. That's an ongoing practice. It's an ongoing space of community. How do we get that? At the end of the day, thank you, Fran, for the Teacher Self-Care Conference. It gave me a lot to think about, and it gave me a space to decompress and to recharge a little bit. Even though I was on Twitter the other day, like in my feels, I do that a lot. But it still gave me a space to really think about some of the bigger questions and how I'm supporting my teachers and how I'm supporting other teachers that aren't the teachers at my school on life's bigger journey of just being well and being happy. Thank you, Teacher Self-Care Conference.